didn't fall in love. You got hooked. You got tricked. This is how abusers build the most addictive relationship pattern on the planet. And I don't say that to be dramatic. I say it because it's true. This wasn't a relationship. It was a setup. Every story he told, every compliment he gave, every little coincidence that you bonded over, it was all part of his hook. Not by hurting you right away, but by making you feel like you've finally been chosen, seen, safe. And when that version of him starts to disappear, you don't just miss him, you chase that high, because they didn't just manipulate you, they rewired your nervous system. Real quick, if we haven't met yet, I'm Lisa Sunny. I'm a toxic relationship expert, author, and creator of the Break and Rebuild method inside the Trauma Bond Recovery course. And that's really what I'm describing here, right? A man that uses these tactics on you creates an unhealthy attachment called a trauma bond. This isn't love, and I am exposing that. Hit subscribe so you never miss the truth. Let's get into it, okay? Because there are so many ways that they do it. Love bombing and future faking and fast tracking intimacy, flooding you with attention, oversharing heartbreak, saying that every ex was crazy, making you feel different, special, saying things like, when you know, or we're soulmates. But the 4 that I'm about to walk you through, these are the sneakiest ones, the most insidious, covert ones. The ones that actually don't look like manipulation. They look like bonding. They feel like trust. And sometimes it only takes a few weeks. That's all they need. And that's why this is so disorienting, because your body bonded before your brain even had time to figure this out or catch up. These are traps. Psychological traps designed to fast track your attachment and sidestep your instincts. Here's what we're going to cover, okay? Mirroring, trauma sharing as manipulation, victim positioning, and mind mapping. And I'm saving mind mapping for last because it is the most dangerous. Now let's break down each one. Number 1, mirroring. Mirroring is when they reflect your values, your beliefs, your habits, even your personality back to you. And it's so precisely that it feels like you finally met your soulmate. You like hiking? He's always wanted to get into it, or he's an avid hiker. You're sober curious? Oh, so is he. You say that you've never felt fully seen before? He says, oh, that's exactly how I've always felt too. That's not real compatibility. It's curated. They're not bonding with you. They're studying you and performing the role of your ideal partner. I'm going to give you an example. You casually mention wanting a dog someday. Suddenly, this guy's texting you dog memes, asking you what breed you'd want, talking about walking your future pup together. It's so sweet, right? But later you realize this guy doesn't even like dogs. That's not real. It was bait. Another example, you tell him you grew up in chaos, you crave stability. Boom. This guy's going to be the most stable, consistent, gentle man you've ever met until you let your guard down. And then suddenly he's giving you the silent treatment, or he's blowing up over nothing. And you're standing there wondering, where's that calm guy? What the hell? Right? But it starts as mirroring you. Why does this work? Because it kind of feels like alignment, right? Like I said, it fast tracks intimacy, makes you feel like you found your person, but you didn't. You found somebody playing the role of your person like an actor until they don't need to anymore. You know, something really interesting here is that when you're being mirrored, you're actually falling in love with yourself. Now, the second one is trauma sharing as manipulation. This one is so hard to spot, especially if you're a really kind, emotionally open person. You're loyal, you're empathetic, compassionate. This feels like vulnerability and it looks like connection, but it's not vulnerability, it's bait. I want to be clear though, not everybody who shares their story early on is trying to manipulate you. I can just imagine the comment section if I didn't say that. The difference is this. Healthy people don't weaponize what they told you, and abusers do. Okay, so example 1, you're 2 dates in, he's already telling you how his ex cheated on him and just destroyed his trust. You feel honored, honestly, that he'd share something so personal with you. The truth is that story isn't just for bonding, it's to control what you do next, okay? Let's say he tells you his ex cheated. Let's stick with that example. Later on in the relationship, you want to go out with your friends, you want to ask a question about his past, he can say, I told you I have trust issues. Please don't do what she did. That's control, but you see how it looks like vulnerability? Another example. He tells you about his rough childhood, abandonment, neglect, trauma. You feel bad for him. That's sad stuff. When he acts out, he blows up at you, he disappears, he withdraws. You are going to excuse it. He's been through so much, right? You think you're being supportive. He thinks he's trained you. My ex told me how terribly his parents treated him, how awful his mother was. His stepdad was so hard on him. He always grew up feeling like the black sheep. I felt so bad for him. I trusted him because he was vulnerable with me. In fact, that actually led me to reciprocate and be vulnerable back. He later used every single vulnerable thing that I shared with him against me. This tactic works because it activates your empathy, your attachment system all at the same time. You feel bonded. In fact, you feel protective of him. You feel responsible for not hurting him more. But the real vulnerability in a real healthy relationship, that's going to build slowly. It doesn't just dump trauma in your lap in the first few dates. Okay, the third one is victim positioning, right? He's not just someone who's been hurt. He's always the one who's been wronged. And this isn't just about sharing trauma. This is framing every past relationship as abuse he endured, as some toxic woman, some toxic partner. My ex was unstable. My last girlfriend was so controlling. My baby mama's insane. She still wants me. My ex-wife turned the kids against me. He doesn't talk about his role, what he did, right? There's never any accountability. He's just the guy who keeps attracting crazy women. Here's a sneaky example. My ex was so insecure. She hated when I had female friends. So now if you feel uncomfortable about that woman that he's texting late at night, you know, that coworker, you're insecure. You've become her. My own abusive ex, he told his new partner, if I wanted to be treated like this, I just would have stayed with Lisa. Now she does every single thing she can to not be like me, the version of me, really, that he painted. She doesn't know me, but I tell you, she thinks she does. She thinks he's the victim of me. And this guy can use me still to keep her in line. She doesn't want to be like me, right? Another example, my ex used fake crying to manipulate me. So when you cry after being stonewalled or gaslit or hurt, in his mind, you're not expressing pain, right? You're doing what she did. This tactic works because it will frame any future boundary you set as proof that you're just no better than his ex. And it gets in your head. It makes you afraid of being just another crazy woman in his story. And that trope of the crazy, bitter ex, it's everywhere. I would love to tell you that women don't buy that, but women buy that all the time. As an aside, I highly recommend unpacking that internalized misogyny in therapy. But ultimately, you swallow your discomfort, you try harder, you don't want to be the bad guy. That's the trap. Now you're performing his version of the good woman, and you're going to lose yourself like this. Okay, here's the one that is literally the most insidious. Mind mapping. This one is the worst. It's the hardest to spot. It doesn't feel like manipulation. It really feels like connection. Okay, I first heard the term mind mapping in a book called Run Like Hell by Dr. Nadine Macaluso. She's a licensed therapist now, but she is also the ex-wife of the real-life Wolf of Wall Street, Jordan Belfort. She talks about how high control, abusive men build trust by collecting your secrets, your fears, and your stories early on, not to love you better, but to control you later. These guys don't just get in your head. They're building a map of how you work emotionally, mentally, and even physically. So when things kind of go sideways, they're going to know exactly where to hit you where it hurts. And that's what this is, right? It's not bonding, it's strategy. They ask deep questions. Tell me about your childhood. Hey, what scares you the most in relationships? Have you ever felt like somebody really saw you? They ask you these deep questions, even if they don't sound like that. They're asking you all these questions. They look you in the eye. They hold your hand. They say things like, oh, you can tell me anything. And you do, because you've never had somebody ask questions like this before. You think, finally, someone who wants to understand me. It's building that soulmate connection. That man doesn't want to understand you. He wants to know you so he can use it later. He mentally and sometimes literally files away this information. Here's an example. You tell him, maybe over wine one night, right, that your biggest fear is being abandoned. And you don't even say it dramatically. It's just kind of like a quiet truth, right? You say, when people leave, I make it mean that I'm not good enough. And at the time, he holds you or kisses you, or he says, I would never do that. I'm not like them. Fast forward 3 months, 3 years, a decade, you bring up something that's bothering you, he shuts down, he'll pull away, he'll disappear for a few hours, possibly a few days. And then he says, maybe I'm just not what you need. It's like a threat of abandonment. He says it calmly. He shrugs at you. Your stomach is going to drop because he's not having a vulnerable moment. He is pushing your exact button. He's making you beg for him to stay. Another example, you tell him that your last partner cheated and you always felt like you were just competing to be chosen. At the time, he'll reassure you. He'll tell you that he's not like that. He'll be the guy that sends you reassuring text messages, holds your hand in public, posts photos of you together, tags it, little heart emojis. You feel safe. But then one night he'll flirt with another woman in front of you and say that you're too sensitive when you bring it up. He'll make you feel crazy for even noticing. Suddenly, you are right back in that feeling that you told him about, right? The one that you thought you finally escaped? No. This time it's worse because it's coming from the person that said he would never do that. This whole thing, this is what makes mind mapping so painful. It's not random. He flipped the switch on purpose. This is not a guy that just doesn't know better. This is a guy who does know better because you told him what mattered. You told him what broke you before. You told him what you needed to feel safe, and now he's using it against you. That's what's so hard to explain to other people because they weren't there when he was being sweet and they didn't see that sort of good version that felt like magic. So they don't necessarily understand why it hurts that much because they didn't hear you say, this is the one thing I can't handle, and then watch him do it anyway on purpose like you did. And that's the difference. You weren't just hurt, you were betrayed in the exact way that you told him it would destroy you. And when that happens, I'm telling you, people think like, oh, it's a breakup, it's heartbreak. It's deeper than that. It's confusion, it's shame, it's self-doubt. You start wondering if you're too much. Did you say too much? Are you the reason he changed? Because he's telling you that you're the reason. But no, you were just honest and he used it. That's mind mapping. That's why these kinds of relationships kind of feel like they break you in ways that nothing else ever has or ever could. Because he didn't just cross a boundary. He used a roadmap that you gave him to do it. It's not just hurting you. He's literally using your story to do it. So let's be clear, right? He didn't just lie. He built a version of himself for you to attach to on purpose. And once you bonded, he yanks the rug. He watches you scramble to get him back. You're not weak. He set you up. And if you've been stuck in this cycle, if you've been trauma bonded, if you're confused, if you don't know your worth, I want you to know you can break the pattern. And it's not by watching for red flags, because that's just absolutely not enough. You have to understand what part of you is vulnerable to these tactics. You have to rebuild self-trust. Don't even think about dating again until you really start building self-trust. It's not about trusting other people. You have to rewire that part of you that thinks love is earned by sacrifice. That's the work that I do with my clients. And if you're ready, I would love to help. Click the link below to learn more about working with me one-on-one. Now, if this video just kind of hit you in the gut, leave a comment, share your story, subscribe, because the more you understand how they trap you, the faster you can get free. And you can get free. So the question really isn't, why did I fall for this? It's, why was he building a trap in the first place?